We've done 31 deals. It hasn't all been sunshine and roses. It hasn't all been an upward perfect trajectory. There's been some pain. We're learning some lessons. We've learned some lessons. We're going to continue learning lessons. But that is exactly, from my perspective, the separator. It is the separator that makes people go from good to great. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. I'm your co-host, Dan Brisse. Today, I want to freewheel some thoughts. I was listening to a remarkable podcast the other day and reading a couple books, and I took some notes about some thoughts that I thought would be absolutely life-changing for a lot of folks to get. I know they're extremely powerful for me, and just one of these thoughts turned into a habit, or one thought backed with major determination or massive action could really impact your life. And that's why I felt like it was a critical moment for me to share some of this with you guys. So I'm just going to start with the very first point, in that, have you ever looked back and realized that there was one single decision, one moment that completely changed the trajectory of your life? It could be a person you met, or a job you left, a move you made. And I'm telling you right now, you've got another one of those moments in front of you or coming. And identifying those moments are unbelievable, or those people. When I look back at my life, I can think of some very specific people, very specific moments that changed everything. And I really wonder, where would I be if that moment didn't happen? First moment that comes to mind for me was making a matter-of-fact decision that I was either going to make it as a pro snowboarder, or I was going to die trying. And I know that sounds intense. I know you're probably listening to this thinking, who would do that? And that didn't happen the first day I found snowboarding. That was 6 years in. But as my obsession and burning desire and determination to become a professional snowboarder increased, that's eventually what it turned into. I was either going to make it or die trying. And I just want you to think about, when someone's that way and they're committed to what they said, it's not just pie in the sky talk, but you truly feel that way. That's the moment when things start to change. That commitment, one of my leadership coaches said it all the time: commitment moves the world. And it's 100% true. And it wasn't difficult to take the action on a day-to-day basis. It just was something I had to do. I felt like I had to do. And I just want to speak based off of real life experience for me, you guys, because I think it's so interesting when some folks have found success, unique success in some parts of their lives. And I'm around extremely successful people all the time. And I can always learn something from somebody. So I hope with what I'm sharing today, you can just purely hear it as, this is how it was for me. Maybe that's not how it is for everybody, but this is how it was for me. And this is what produced the result I wanted to create. So, another moment in time after making that decision that I go back, I'm just going to continue through my life, was when I won at a contest called the Aspen Open. I was pretty much a nobody for 10 years in snowboarding. I'm somebody, but I wasn't known in snowboarding. That's what I mean when I say I was a nobody in snowboarding. I wasn't known yet. I was still on the come up. And there was a contest that one of my buddies said I should go to. It was called the Aspen Open in Aspen, Colorado. And at the time, I was working at TGI Fridays, eating peanut butter and jelly for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and living paycheck to paycheck. I was broke. I would snowboard every day, and I'd work at night, and I didn't have any extra financial help from my parents. I had enough just to get by. And so he brought this idea up, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but I can't go. It's too expensive. I don't have any money. How am I going to drive to Aspen, get a hotel room in Aspen and pay to get in this contest? And luckily at that time, that person believed in me, and he said, I'll pay for you to go. You go. If you win, you pay me back. If you don't win, you got nothing to lose. And so with nothing to lose, we went. And he drove me there. He paid for the hotel. He paid for my entry fee. And if you go to an opens, anyone can enter. It's this event where you think you've got talent or you want to have a shot at turning pro. These are the events you go to. And so after being there on the initial day, there were 250 guys, 50 young guys that were there for qualifier day. And the way it works is you go through qualifier days, you get 2 runs. If you finish top 10, you go to finals. Well, I finished 6th that first day of qualifiers. And I went home that night or went back to the hotel room and I visualized my run and I thought about it. And for whatever else happened that finals day, the other guys that were in front of me on day one fell. And I ended up winning this contest. And that was the beginning of really having the opportunity to be put on the stage in front of a lot of other brand managers. I got invited to Snowboarder Magazine's Super Park event. I got invited to Transworld Snowboarding's Team Challenge event. I got to go and shoot with some of the biggest photographers in the world. I still can remember to this day. I was never known in snowboarding one week. And then next week, I'm shooting photos with one of the biggest photographers in the world purely because one guy at one brand saw my run at the Aspen Open, liked what he saw, and started to put me at events where other people who controlled the industry were. That one event, that one decision. What if I didn't land that run? Where would I be? I don't know. Or I think back to meeting my wife. I wanted to work at a place called TGI Fridays. You ever heard of it? Yeah. It's the chain of restaurants. I don't know why I wanted to work there. I wanted to work at TGI Fridays as a bussing tables when I was 18 years old. And the first year I went to go and get a job as a busser, the manager said, "You don't qualify. You can't work here." And I remember being pretty disappointed. And the thing is, when I had lived in Salt Lake City, as I was working on developing my snowboarding career at that time, I never went back to the same place more than once. Each year I'd go. I'd be there in the winter. I would work at one place, then I'd go to the next. I started at Blockbuster, then I worked at Payway, then I worked at Red Lobster, and then I ended at TGI Fridays before my snowboarding career took off. But the year before, I went to get interviewed at TGI Fridays, and the manager didn't hire me. He said, "No, you're not. We don't need you right now. You're not the right fit." And I don't know why, but I was determined enough that next winter I went back and interviewed with the same exact manager, and the guy remembered me, if you can believe that. He's like, "You interviewed here last year." And we said no. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm back." And he's like, "With that kind of determination, I'm going to give you a chance." As a busser. Like, this is obviously a time when it wasn't easy to get a job, clearly. And so I worked as a busser and server at TGI Fridays, and that's where I met my wife. And I've been married to that woman for 17 years. And I just think back, one person, one decision followed by massive, massive action, and it can change your life forever. But it only matters if you take action. That's the thing that needs to be understood. Committed, sometimes extremely uncomfortable action. That's how you change your life. You know, for me, going into real estate investing, there was a time, I'll give you one last story, and I just give you these stories, and I hope there's maybe some inspiration in there for you if you're thinking about making a change, because anytime there's been change in my life, I've been terrified. I'll just be totally honest with you guys. I'm rarely going through change feeling extremely confident, like I got this. It's usually unsure, insecure. Should I do it, not do it? Until a final decision is made. And I made a decision that I was going to be a real estate investor because I wanted to create multiple streams of passive income. I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to have a tax break. I wanted to have depreciation because I realized the pain of taxes when I came from nothing, working at TGI Fridays to being a pro athlete. Got to see what tax pain feels like, and it hurt. And so I made a really clear decision that I want to have X number of passive income flowing in every month. I put a number in my mind. It was a very clear decision. I'm going to this level of passive income per month, and I'm going to have this level of tax pain each year, and I'm going to make it until I make it, or I'm just going to keep trying until I die. And that type of decision, again, followed by massive committed action, even though it's uncomfortable, is how I've seen success happen. And I'm in a unique spot. You know, I got to travel with a lot of big name pro athlete snowboarders. I got to know them very well. And the great part was it was all the same for everyone. And what I mean by that is everyone at the top in the snowboarding industry was obsessed with snowboarding. I'll give you guys a story. You know, when I was younger, I would watch snowboarding videos all summer long because in Minnesota, I grew up in Minnesota, there was no snow June, July, August, September, October. And I didn't have the money to go to Mount Hood and snowboard in the summer like a lot of my friends who got to, lucky sons of guns. And obsessively, we'd burn out these VHS tapes, like watch them once, twice a day all summer. And that obsessive nature and obsessive behavior was not common amongst my friends in Minnesota growing up. But when I got to the point of being a top snowboarder and hanging out with other professional snowboarders, guess what? They were all the exact same. We would snowboard all day. As soon as snowboarding was over, we'd grab a little bite to eat. We'd go back to the hotel room and we'd all watch snowboarding movies. And it was this realization. I'm like, man, I found my tribe. I found my people. And then we'd talk about snowboarding all night, right? Then you'd get up and you'd snowboard again all day, every day. And then you'd watch snowboarding videos at night. And it was the only thing on their minds and my mind. Same with real estate investing. You know, as you go down this path, you get to these companies or you get to these level or these owners own several thousand, 15, 20, 30,000 units. And they've been obsessively building their company for decades. And that ability to stay laser focused, take massive action, stay committed, get uncomfortable, keep pushing. And it doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Like I want to share that with you guys too. You know, like on the way up in my snowboarding career, there was major setback, major injury, major disappointment at times. And it happened quite often before I even had my snowboarding career take off. I can tell you one time I was 21. It was my third year out in Salt Lake City. I got out to Salt Lake City late compared to my buddies. I felt behind compared to where I should have been at that time of the year. So I'm rushing to get better. You can't rush progression. Rushing progression is impossible. Progression happens at a certain pace, and that's the pace it happens at. Yeah, you can snowboard a lot more and the pace will speed up, but I can't go to one session and have a way more progression during that one session of snowboarding, right? I'm going to snowboard for an hour and I'm going to get similar progression as if I snowboarded really fast or tried harder tricks, or might even slow it down if I get hurt, like happened here. I came off a rail early. We would slide handrails, and my board hit a rut in the snow, and I dislocated my kneecap. And I dropped to the ground screaming, and all of my buddies that were there were like, what happened? That wasn't even that bad, because it didn't look bad at all. And we pulled my snowboard pants up. And when you pulled my snowboard pants up and got above my knee, you could see my kneecap. I don't want to be too descriptive here, but my kneecap was on the left side of my left knee. The guys all just screamed, oh my gosh. I screamed too. I'm like, get me to the car. And these guys, 4 guys, picked me up and carried me 200 yards to a car. And, you know, that moment right there, I ended up, unfortunately, dislocating my kneecap. I ended up, unfortunately, needing to have meniscus surgery. And my season ended that year, and I wasn't even a paid snowboarder yet. So, same with real estate. Like, we've done 31 deals. It hasn't all been sunshine and roses. It hasn't all been an upward perfect trajectory. There's been some pain. We're learning some lessons. We've learned some lessons. We're going to continue learning lessons. But that is exactly, from my perspective, the separator. It is the separator that makes people go from good to great. Is you have to go through this pain sometimes. And yeah, we do the best we can to avoid injury in our snowboarding career. We get around mentors to help us underwrite and help us understand deals, and market cycles shift. And sometimes there are lessons that you didn't get early enough, and pain comes. And I just think I want you guys to hear this too. You find anybody who's done anything that's not normal, if you want to put it that way, I guarantee you they push through an incredible amount of pain. They've suffered. They've practiced when no one was watching, and they have some sort or some type of obsessive behavior for a long period of time. It's just the reality of planet Earth and making dreams come true. One other point that I think is really worth understanding is that if you feel desperate, like your back's against the wall, that's fire. It's powerful. Think about this. This is the story that I read in this the other day that made me want to share this. If I woke up and one of my kids was missing from the bed, do you think I'd worry about anything else other than getting out the door? Would I worry if my hair was combed? Would I worry what people thought as I was driving down the street? Would I worry when I was on the side of the road yelling for my kids what people thought? Yeah, no, desperation strips away all the noise, takes away any of the perfection, your image, approval, all of it's gone. I had a lot of desperation as a snowboarder. I'm not going to lie. I was desperate for it. I have desperation for freedom. When I say freedom with real estate, I'm thinking passive income. I have desperation to create certain things in my life, and I realize there's a lot of things that I'm not desperate for, and it's really difficult to create those. The problem is that most of us get comfortable, and when you're comfortable, your edge gets dull. The drive fades. And guess what creeps in? It's fear. So when you're comfortable and your edge is dull, I read this story the other day that I thought was really interesting too. Two guys are cutting down trees from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. At noon, one of them leaves for 1 hour and comes back at 1. The other guy chops straight through. So one guy chops from 9 to 5 straight. The other guy chops from 9 to noon, takes a break from noon to 1, comes back and chops from 1 to 5. And the guy who takes the break cuts down more trees. And the guy who's been swinging all day long asks the guy, hey, you leave for an hour and you still cut down more than me. How do you do it? And the guy that leaves says, well, yeah, when I leave, I go and sharpen my saw. And it's so interesting to think about that because we have this tendency, I don't want to speak for anybody else. I have this tendency to get up and start working and work directly through the whole day. But where is the time for me to go sharpen my saw with my mind? Maybe take a little break. Ask myself, is what I'm doing efficient? I don't know about you guys, but I have the tendency, like I said, to plow through the whole day. And by the end of the day, I'm so spent. My brain is so sluggish. I feel beat. So one thing that I think is just absolutely critical to remember is that rest is okay. Rest is needed. Reflection, work on your brain, read a book, get some positive mental attitude, recipes. Listen to podcasts like these. So that's why you've got to flip your script around. Most of us obsess over what we fear. But when you obsess over your dreams, when you live and breathe what you want, you start moving toward it. Obsession becomes possession. Think about that. When you live and breathe with what you want, you start moving toward it. Think about how often in your life you're thinking about what you don't want versus what you do want. You've got to reinvent yourself every single year. So I'm 41 this year. Next year, I better be an entirely new version of Dan Brisse. And the year after that, same thing. And how do you reinvent yourself every year? How do you change your identity every year? How do you get better every year? You got to work on you. I think Jim Rohn said, if you want to be a great leader, work on yourself harder than you do on your job. If you want to create a fortune, work on yourself harder than you do work on your job. You want to make a living? Work on your job. You want to make a fortune? Work on yourself. That's reinventing yourself every single year. And it's just like working out at the gym. You don't work out at the gym 1 year and you're fit forever. That's just not how it's ever going to be. You don't read one book and you're set for life. You got to continually train. You got to continually put in the work. And here's the truth that, this gentleman shared as I was listening to. Winning in life is 75% psychological, 25% mechanical. So have you ever heard about your identity thermostat? This kind of comes into play with what the 75-25. You've got one, I've got one. It controls how far we let ourselves rise. So I see this in myself. When we start hitting massive results in business, boom, I can cool it down. Or same in my relationship, same in my fitness. You've got to reprogram your identity thermostat every single week or even every single day. You got to be aware of what you think your identity is or how you see yourself. If I see myself as a professional top snowboarder in the world, that's how I am. That's who I am. I mean, think about your identity. When you say, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is, I am a snowboarder. There was a time in my life where I didn't say I am a snowboarder. I would have been like, I'm a football player, or I don't know who I am. I'm finding myself, right? You hear that all the time too. But for me, there was a time in my life where when people would ask, what do you do? You'd say, I'm a snowboarder. Now you can see I'm a real estate investor. But there was a time where I was not a real estate investor. And you and your identity thermostat will dictate where you end up. Another one that can be thought of is your weight. Do you see yourself as an athlete? I was listening to a guy on stage the other day at one of my mastermind events, and he said, how you see yourself is what you will create. I see myself as an athlete. I always have. And I'm just curious, if more people saw themselves as an athlete, would they eat healthier? Would they exercise more? Would they move faster in life? Your identity controls how far we let ourselves rise. Just think about that. If you start hitting massive results in business and then you cool it down, you don't see yourself at that level. If your relationship starts to get really good and then you have this huge blow up fight, you don't see yourself at that level as your identity of that person that can have that. Same with your fitness. You got to reprogram your identity thermostat. And while you're grinding at life, this has happened today for us. We just closed a couple deals today. Should be a big celebration, right? We just bought two really, really great triple net lease deals. We've been working on them for the last 90 days, say our 70 days, whatever it's been. And today we close. Don't delay happiness, right? I'm not even celebrating. I don't even know if I told my wife. That's a big mistake. It's important to celebrate these wins as we go. And it's okay to have blissful dissatisfaction, feel the joy, then go back to work. But at least the suggestion is to at least feel the joy, celebrate, do something to celebrate, feel the feeling of success and allow yourself to feel it. I can say it was pretty rare that I celebrated in my snowboarding career as well, unless something major happened. Like if you win a contest that moment, and everyone's there celebrating, it's hard not to celebrate because everyone's at the party. You're partying too. But, if you land a great trick, you might not really celebrate that much. I might be like, let's just go to the next spot. Great, stack it. Let's keep going. We got to keep the grind on. You want to celebrate. You want to get those feelings to be thoroughly enjoyed. It'll create you wanting to chase more of that positive feeling. Here's another killer. This is interesting to hear. We keep negotiating the price of our dreams. The question keeps coming up. What's the cost? Well, what's the cost? What's the cost? Stop. If it's legal, ethical, moral, and you want it, pay the price. Your dream's worth it. You're worth it. Your kids are watching you. Future generations depend on what you choose right now. Think about that. Your kids are watching you. They will model how you are. I think about that so much. I talk to my kids. My words are so worthless. If I can just model the person that I would admire who they were by just being that person, you teach so much more clearly. And then last thing they talked about, which I thought was so incredible, was think about somebody who made you feel special. Think about somebody in your life who made you feel like you were guaranteed for greatness. You know what? They were right. Live like they were right. You can reprogram your brain. You were born to do something amazing, to create your dreams. You are not small. You are not invisible. You are not worthless. You have the ability to create anything. I'm through this incredible leadership course over the last year, and I have challenges in my life, you guys, just like anybody. There are challenges I'm dealing with. And anybody who says they're not dealing with challenges, they're not doing anything. Like, let's just be real here. I was part of a great leadership course with 12 unbelievable people, all business owners or people that are really moving the needle in their lives. And I got to know them all on a very intimate level. It was a very private setting. And there was not one person in there that had it all figured out. Not one. I mean, the course leader had most of it figured out, I'm sure. But beyond that guy, the one guy who is, one of the most unique leaders I've ever met in my life. Beyond that person, I'm telling you, 99% of the people have challenges and they are struggling. And so you can reprogram your brain. You were born to do something great. The most efficient way to reprogram your brain, I'm going to leave you with two things. These two things are incantations. These are not affirmations. We're talking like motion, emotion, language. You say something out loud with intensity. I'm successful. I'm confident. I'm in the process of receiving what I deserve. It's a really simple incantation. And if you got energy and you've got movement, from my perspective, the way it occurs to me, that changes how I feel, changes how I see the world, changes my programming, changes my belief system, which changes everything about how I am on a day-to-day basis. And the other way, if you don't want to use incantations or it sounds too, hokey pokey to you, and I'm going with incantations like they're daily. Might be at the gym. You might say it for 30 minutes. You put yourself into a state where you have a stronger memory with motion, emotion, and language, and you say it out loud with intensity, and it helps change everything about how you feel and how you see the world. And the other way is immersion. You might dive into an environment that changes your biochemistry, like you do, a 4 or 5 day hangout session with some of the biggest thought leaders in the world. And you guys mastermind on the biggest ideas for 4 to 5 days. It's one of the reasons we love to be a part of masterminds. You get around other people who are pushing themselves to whole new levels. You get to associate with other folks who are really in a desperate state of being. It's not for everybody. I understand that. But my guess is if you're listening to this podcast, there's something in this podcast that resonates with you. And, the incantations, I'm just going to touch back to that, is you anchor your goals during your workouts. It elevates your emotional states and locks in that vision. And through it all, you don't forget to feel the moments, One thing I gotta stress, I can't stress enough that it's on my mind is my kids are 12, 6, and 3. It's never coming back. These days will never, ever come back. Design your life. Get specific. One of our mentors he said, if I came up to anyone in here, I would be blown away if you could tell me exactly what your life's going to look like in 3 years. And without clarity, what's the chance of you hitting a goal? You don't even know what the goal looks like. And I'm guilty of it too. Take time to design your life. Commit to your dreams. Turn up your thermostat and live it out before you die. Thanks for listening to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. If you think this show would help somebody, go ahead and forward it on to them. And please leave us a 5-star rating and review. It helps us attract great guests. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Keeping It Real Estate.